the reason we wrote that book is because one of my teenagers really was going off the rails, and I said, Lynn, you've got to write this book with me, you've got to help. And she said, it was so funny, she said, no, I'm in a new relationship, I don't want to, but I talked to her husband and said, he said, yeah, you need to do it.
If you had to name this differently, would you have changed the name originally? Because
No.
back then, no.
For one thing, another, Joan Durant up in Canada also wrote a book called Positive Discipline. I didn't know about her book. I don't think she knew about my book, but it's in a different country. And Positive Discipline now is like she teamed up with some Care for the Children, or what is it? Some national organizations that work with children.
UNICEF.
UNICEF, and so in many countries, positive discipline is, and our philosophies are very similar. She didn't have the experiential part, but the basic philosophy of treating children with dignity and respect, and folks, I don't know if she even knows about. Anyway, I know that there are a lot of them. They're not opposing. It's not behaviorism. Behaviorism is the punishment reward. Mm-hmm. Permissiveness, of course, is giving children whatever they want. Which, dare I say, it didn't help that attachment parenting went the other extreme of being so permissive that these children grew up thinking, take care of me.
Right.
They didn't realize the long-term results that the children are feeling like I'm okay only if you're giving me everything I want.
So the attachment is a good thing, especially secure
attachment.
Connection.
See, Adler talked about it as connection. Yeah. The primary goal is belonging and significance. So yes, attachment is very important, and it can be overdone. It can be create dependency if it's if you're not at the same time teaching children to contribute even when they're little.
When we give to them, everything is done for them, and then they obviously aren't able to, they don't have critical thinking or problem solving to be able to do that task. Right. But when we break it down, and I love that you spoke about age appropriateness, especially with the age groups. I know in a school setting, when you have a 0 to 3-year-old and child is turning, parents, we get challenged when we start to see a friend's child around the same age is toilet trained and ours isn't. But eventually we all get there.
Right.
But if we start to toilet train a young child before they're ready, chances are we're not going to be successful. And similar to the tools.
Right. And then exactly for teenagers is a total different phase of development. And I just love it that Lynn said, how do you spell individuation? REBEL. And so to understand that it's their job, it's absolutely their job. And so learning how to navigate through that is just really a whole different thing. And I just loved her understanding. Actually, the reason we wrote that book is because one of my teenagers really was going off the rails, and I said, Lynn, you've got to write this book with me, you've got to help. And she said, it was so funny, she said, no, I'm in a new relationship, I don't want to, but I talked to her husband and he said, yeah, you need to do it. So then we wrote several other books together. So, and Cheryl Irwin, wrote then Positive Discipline for preschoolers after the first 3 years, and for childcare providers, and for single parents, and for step parents. It's like they all really appreciated having their own language.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are a lot of different folks who joined after Jane and Lynn team and helped write a variety of books that are out there and made Positive Discipline where it is. And I appreciate how you're always grateful for those who brought their support.
And their expertise, like when Stephen Foster said, Positive Discipline has really worked with our special needs kids. He said, we need a book for special needs. And I said, okay, you can take all the principles, do whatever, add your knowledge for preschool and for special needs. And I tell you, the first workshop we did for children with special needs, this one mother came up just in tears saying, "You're telling me I get to raise my child, not just manage him."
That's touching me, because one of my biggest thing is, as school operators or as teachers, we sometimes feel helpless, and as parents, when we have our child that learns differently or processes information differently, or might be, simulates it, showing signs of overwhelm by touching others. They're not trying to hurt other people, and they get so misunderstood. And then the government agencies are often saying, if a child is hitting someone else, you got to protect these other children, which we do. And at the same time, it keeps us from supporting the child that's probably doing the hurting. And they must feel so overwhelmed. And we need just support and resources, and having Positive Discipline for Special Needs book. It just offers encouragement.
I worked with one school, and I was doing the positive discipline in the classroom for their preschool. They're getting back, and they were getting ready for the next year. And one of the teachers who worked with kids with special needs was talking about how hard it was for her children because of the other children called them retards, or they're just really. And every other teacher agreed that they would talk to the children about how to understand and help and encourage these kids who had special needs. And so when we did a follow-up workshop, that teacher was just in tears. She said, every kid, they started treating my kids with dignity and respect. And so kids are willing to do that. They just need to be taught. They need to have that opportunity to brainstorm together. And earlier when I was talking about the kids who were coming up with a problem for the kid who was late. And at first they were all punishment. But when we said, all I had to say is, why don't you focus on solutions? Oh, I didn't have to teach them how to do that. I just had to give them the platform. And they were just so creative.
And it's so our go-to, right? It's generations of learning and shifting before taking Positive Discipline. For me, the parenting style that I've seen was my parents, my mom, my father, and my aunts and uncles, and in schools. And that's what I knew, how to discipline using the methods. And of course, there's so many books out there, Jane. There were so many books, and I would read this one that would say one thing, another would say another thing. And the reason why Positive Discipline for me worked was because I was a rebel myself, the REBEL for sure, because punishment to me felt like I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to raise my children in that way. Not to say my parents were bad parents. My parents only knew something that they had learned from their environment. But I knew that this was respectful, and it was where I get to have joy in working with my children. Mm-hmm. So having basic things that I grew up with, like cooking with my mother, helping her roll the Indian rotis, hand-eye coordination, in Montessori, we try to do all of these things, and they were gifts. And here, I was finding myself always running, going to work, and thinking it's faster to do it myself. Right. And then when you include them, and that's like, after work, many parents, and when I operated school, parents would say, we don't have even time to cook, we just grab something, we go home. And we're exhausted. Like you in school, you get to have this amazing time with my child because they're fresh and up, they come in. And then by the night when we are with them, they're exhausted. And that really was deep for me. And one of the things I always said is, come to Positive Discipline seminars and let's come up with some of the things in like routines. We should talk about routines and how that could really help a busy parent. Really go from I have to do everything for my child to we can do this together.
Do you know that one of the reasons I just love the Positive Discipline for Single Parents book is so many parents are feeling guilty, and so then they think they have to make it up to their child, or they go from trying to make it up and then feeling exhausted because the child doesn't appreciate it. But it's like instead it's an opportunity to get your child involved, that you need their help. You really do need their help. And so having these family meetings for single parents is so important. Get the kids, instead of feeling guilty, see this opportunity to work together as the family that they are, which is really, really important. you.